Hey, welcome back, fellow weavers of destinies, dreamers of worlds, and crafters of fate. My name's Ben, I'm the Rookie DM, and here we are continuing on to the next session of the Bessar campaign. Let's get into it. Last we left off, our party of adventurers had sailed off of the island of Satis. They encountered some marrow on the open sea and now are sailing to Kuwari Island and the sort of pirate-ish town of Nharuun. I had to do a lot of work between sessions this time because the players went way off the beaten path to somewhere that I had not necessarily anticipated, although maybe I should have. But it was fun because it gave me an opportunity to try some new ideas and some things that I had been playing around with that I had not had anywhere to put necessarily. And I was like, now I had a place to put it. And it was kind of fun developing a new city, developing a part of the world that I hadn't fully fleshed out yet, because much of this world I basically have written a couple of sentences for, and I have an idea in my head of what is there and what is the vibe, what's going on, what kind of city is this, or what kind of mysteries, or it's just very undefined, and I'm basically filling in the details and coloring in all the details as we get to it, because I work full time, like I have limited time as a DM, but I had to invest quite a bit of time into this next session and the next couple of sessions, that will be taking place. So they sail on the open seas. I had to rework my encounter table because I didn't want them to re-roll the marrow encounter and have them go through the same battle twice. Like, that's not fun. That gets boring really easily, and it's just a way of making travel more interesting. It's not, this is not like a classic JRPG where you just, walk around the open areas and fight the same monsters over and over again to try and level up, right? That's not what we're doing here. So I swapped out the marrow encounter for a water elemental encounter because I thought, why not? That's kind of cool. It's different. I got a water elemental mini. We ended up not rolling that. The first day, there's only 2 days of travel left. Excuse me. Only 2 days of travel left, and the first day they rolled a clear sunny day. Travel without issue, but there's some RP moments. So one thing that happened that was kind of interesting is in between the sessions, one of my players messaged me and said, hey, can I have some RP with Captain Electo? And part of the reason was because this player is playing a water genasi as well. Captain Electo is also a water genasi. So the player wanted to talk to the captain and, share stories about being on the sea and this and that. And so I asked the player, did you want to have this conversation privately away from the eyes and ears of the other players, or do you care if we do it in game so that you can? He's one of my more experienced players. I have 2 or 3 brand new players who've never played D&D before, and so I wanted to give an opportunity to RP that. So he agreed and decided to RP it in game. So we kind of started that off. I reminded him and kind of just gave the open door, like, hey, do you want to do some RP with Captain Electo? And he said yes. So they ended up having a little bit of a chit chat, and I mean, it probably went on for 10 or 15 minutes or something. Like, it was a good little chunk of time, but it kind of actually put me on the spot a little bit because they asked some questions of Captain Electo that I was not 100% ready for, and I had to kind of make it up on the spot or just kind of go with the flow. And but it was good. It was interesting. And then it ended up sparking a whole chain of RP, because then another player wanted to RP with the halfling that had taken their gold, and the halfling is a real dick and is not very nice, which they learned very quickly, but it was still a good RP moment, and actually 2 of them ended up talking to the halfling. And then they wanted to talk to First Mate Yosa as well. And then they also talked amongst each other, like, what are we going to do when we get to Kuwari Island? What is our goal? What is our mission? What is the unifying thing that brings us together, aside from the fact that we happen to wake up at the same beach at the same time? And all of that RP, maybe some of that would have happened regardless, but it was in that moment sparked because I, encouraged one of the more experienced players, to set the tone and to get out of the pace of like, okay, the day of travel is smooth, nothing happens, on to the next day, right? Instead of just going through the routine motions of that, we ended up having the first hour or so of the session was all RP initiated by the players, both with NPCs and with each other, which I thought was awesome, and it was beautiful and it was cool. And I noticed that even when we took the break that session, the chit chat and camaraderie amongst the players out of game was also elevated, which was really cool for me to see. And this is session 6 now, I believe, or 7. I'm losing track. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of losing track. This is session 7. So, we've been playing for a few months now because we play every other week. And I thought, man, this is so cool just to have them like bonding like this. And so that was really cool. And I give a lot of props to the players, and specifically the first one, for being willing to do that RP in game and to model that and to kick that off, and for them to realize like, oh, we can interact in the world or with the world in this way. And like the DM's ready for it. The DM's down with it. There's questions that can be asked and answered. That was super cool. Anyways, moving on from that, the second day they rolled kind of an interesting encounter that I had come up with. It's not combat. It was simply I had them all roll perception. A couple of them rolled high enough to notice a bottle floating that's like they're kind of passing, on the way. And that was like very opaque and old. And they used Mage Hand to grab the bottle, which the wizard, who is one of the new players, kind of came up with that on their own, which I thought, hey, that's a great idea. The perfect use of Mage Hand, do something like that. Took the bottle out of the water, uncorked it, and inside found a drawing of a very particular rock formation that has a hole in it that looks like a keyhole with a cave on the other side, basically pointing at a location where some kind of treasure might be. What is in there? I haven't even decided what's in there yet. But that location is actually in Satis, which they haven't found yet, but I plan on having that as like a loot thing that they can find later if they decide they want to. My idea is I'm going to have another plotline or adventure that would take them near that location, and if they roll a high enough, investigation or history or something, they have a chance to put 2 and 2 together of like, hey, this is the location that was drawn on that map. We should go investigate that cave. And then that maybe there's some, who knows? I don't even know what they're going to find there yet, but there will be something. And I just thought it was kind of a cool, interesting. It's not just, because a lot of times with travel, there's basically 3 encounters. There's clear day, stormy day, or combat, or potential combat encounter. And I wanted to throw something in there. And there is another thing that's on the table they haven't found yet, but I get to keep that, use it for later. But I wanted to throw something in there that was a little bit more mysterious and interesting and, whatever. So that was it. Then, sorry, with the mic. At the end of the second day, they arrive in the port of Nharuun. And as they approached, the sun is setting. The sky is alit with brilliant oranges and reds and yellows. They see a lighthouse that's striped with reds, oranges, and yellows spiraling down, that's alit to warn of a rocky shore. On the other side, they saw a towering white structure that almost looks like another white tower, but the top has been broken off. Lighthouse. I think I said white tower. It looks like another lighthouse, but the top's been broken off, and there's arched windows all around, some of them lit from within with lantern light. You see a number of colorful roofs peeking out from a jungle canopy along the hillside. You see docks and a number of ships coming and going. As you get closer, you see a monkey come down from the roof of one of these buildings to an unsuspecting cart merchant who's selling fruit, grab one of the fruit, and hop back up on the roof to enjoy his prize, the merchant none the wiser. You see kobolds dressed in ragged clothes, helping load and unload various vessels. I tried to paint as much of a picture of a very diverse, colorful, kind of gritty town. But one of the things that's really cool is on the far left side, just on the edge of town, on a bit of rocky shore, is a corpse of a kraken that has been turned into a fighting arena called the Maw. The Maw is literally the corpse of a kraken that has been beached for mysterious reasons that they don't know yet, and turned into a fighting arena, and is being propped up by all kinds of scaffolding and stuff to try and keep the corpse rigid enough, basically. I imagine that they had a number of magic users use general repose and other things to try and keep the corpse from decaying too much. They've turned part of it into stone, all kinds of, it's just like, when you look at it from far away, you're like, oh my God, that's a kraken that's just sitting there. Then as you get closer, you realize it's a hodgepodge of all kinds of things just trying to keep, because they just thought, this is cool, this is what we're doing. And the players took an immediate interest in the fighting pit. They decided to, since it was the end of the day, they went into Salt Spire Rest, which is the white tower they saw to the right with the broken top, and decided to get a couple rooms for the night and slept, no big deal. Next morning, or actually that evening, they decided to enroll in the fighting pit, and they were asked what their group name is, and they realized, we don't have a group name, we need to get on that. And so even as we speak in the Discord chat, they are trying to come up with something, it's kind of fun. It's given them a way to interact between sessions, which is cool. They also found there is a forge with a half-orc forge master who is very nice to them and sold them some things. They bought, they shopped potions at Serpent's Kiss Elixirs. It has a very old, like, raggedy human woman who's like kind of creepy but fully legit, and selling them some potions. And actually, one thing that came up that was kind of interesting that I thought was maybe a little bit of an oversight on my part, one of the players asked this potion dealer, hey, like, we know these jungles on this island are pretty dangerous and contain a number of ingredients that you may need for the potions that you're making. Would you pay us to go and do this dangerous task for you so we can afford to buy some of your potions? Or maybe we could trade some work for a healing potion or something, which I thought was really smart by the player. But in the spur of the moment, I didn't have anything. So I basically, thankfully, I had already described the shop as very well stocked. So I was able to use that as an excuse by the merchant to say, hey, I don't have anything right now, but I can potentially use your services at a later date. So now I have that as a mental note of, hey, these guys are going to come back and may ask about this again. Maybe that's an adventure hook that they would be interested in, and I could use that as a tie-in for another adventure hook if I wanted to. Maybe they, in the process of finding this ingredient, maybe they have to defeat a monster and take its tooth or something. Maybe they find a ruin that has something of interest in it. Who knows? But another thing I'm seeding to the players is a monolith. So I had them roll perception as they were looking for the shop, which they thought the perception check was to find the shop, but it wasn't. It was to notice in an alleyway a very frazzled and frantic artistic figure painting a mural of a monolith with flowers all around it and an eye at the top. And they even tried to talk to this individual, and he was just like kind of frantic, nonverbal, muttering to himself. I kind of tried to make him kind of crazy, and then finished it and kind of darted off. And then as they were walking through town toward the forge, diving through alleyways and streets, just navigating. Thankfully, one of the players is from Nharuun, so knows his way around. They found another mural, but this time the monolith was depicted in a much darker way with tendrils coming out of it, but the eye wasn't there, and it was much less detail, and it was more scratchy. And so this monolith is something that they will have an opportunity to discover, and has a lot of interesting things that are going on that we can talk about later if they decide to go that direction. But this is I thought was an interesting way of trying to seed and foreshadow what is to come, and to pique their curiosity of like, what is going on with these like people painting random murals. And then I also happened to mention that there were a couple of missing person posters, which they asked what the reward was. And I thought, well, realistically, like these missing persons are from very low income families, which wouldn't have a lot of money. So the reward's not very much. It's like 10 gold or 5 gold, which they immediately lost interest, but that's okay. I don't need them to be interested in that right now. But I'm just foreshadowing some things, and just like, hey, there's some stuff going on here that's, not on the up and up. There's stuff happening in this town. But right now, all they care about is the fighting pit, man. They're like, we can win gold, we can get money, we can, fight a cool monster. That's what they care about, which is cool. I mean, that's why it's there for, right? Like the maw is a thing that's there for them to have fun with. It's really its purpose. It also does have an interesting kind of history to it, which I'll very briefly go into. So basically the idea is this Kraken attacked a ship which was carrying a very powerful magic item that, upon being consumed by the Kraken, drove the Kraken to absolute madness and caused it to beach itself on the shore. This magic item has also infused itself with the heart of the Kraken, causing it to be not completely dead. And it explains part of the reason why they've been able to keep a corpse that large from decaying. Because if you think about something like Gentle Repose or other spells which are meant to prevent the natural decay which occurs upon death, would it really work that well on a creature that large? We're talking about something that is gargantuan in size, something that could swallow a ship, right? So I thought, well, it wouldn't make sense for this. It's like, so the couple things I thought is like, well, even if they defeated this creature at sea, which is technically possible, it would just sink to the bottom of the ocean. There'd be no like realistic way, even with high level magic, to get that thing to shore, right? And then the second thing I thought is the whole like Gentle Repose problem and the decaying corpse problem. So the way that I solve this is the way you solve everything in D&D, through magic. But I thought, well, how cool would it be if it had a magic item that sort of fused with the heart of the beast, is somewhat keeping it alive, but also drove it to madness. It beached itself, so you solve the size and movement problem, and it's keeping it semi-alive, so you solve the decay problem with those two things. But maybe this, I haven't fully fleshed out what this magic item is yet, or what it does. It's something I got to work on in the next couple weeks here. But it's going to be a homebrew thing, and I don't know if it's something that's actually going to come up, because maybe it's giving, funny dreams or having some kind of effect on people. But the whole thing with the monolith also has to do with dreams, and so I don't really want to get into that. If I have too many things causing dreams, it just becomes both repetitive and confusing, and we don't want that, right? We don't want that in a campaign. We want things to make some kind of sense, have a good amount of mystery, be fresh and unique and exciting, and interesting. And so this magic item may never come into play. The other thing that's going to come into play, hopefully at some point, is one of the characters, the one that's from Nharuun, if they visit the Hollow Fang, which is a kind of a shady pub bar, the barkeep there knows this PC, and the PC's childhood friend growing up has gone missing, and will alert the PC to that, which will kick off a whole other adventure with the sort of like very wealthy individual, somewhat similar to the Baron in a way, but this individual is much more dark and shady and is not actually running the town. They just have a lot of power and influence. So those are some of the things that are going on. So we ended the session with them at the fighting pit the following morning, having decided to do 2 battles. They wanted to do an easy battle and then a more challenging battle to try and win the most amount of gold. They're very money focused at the moment, which is totally fine. I'm happy to indulge that. Now, I know this has gone on for a little bit, but I have one more thing that happened. So one of the nights they were sailing at sea, I had all of the players but one leave the table and go outside. Thankfully, it was a nice day. As you can tell, it's warm now where I'm at, so it's tank tops and shorts time here in the Denver area. But I had all the players but one go outside. It was a beautiful evening, thankfully. And one of the players, the servant of Bahamut, who has the tome that is magically locked that they found in the ruined village on Akoi Island, that individual had a dream. And in this dream, Quana herself, who did not identify herself, so the player probably doesn't know, may not have put together that this is Quana, which is fine. They don't need to know that yet. But this person awoke in a vision in a desert with floating rock and parts of buildings, as if the whole landscape was frozen in the middle of an explosion. And they see a dark brown female human figure dressed in beautiful black and golden armor, with a shield and a flaming sword, flames in her eyes, and a bit of a headdress. The inspiration for this character came somewhat from, I'm blanking on her name, but it's the African-looking chick in Arcane, the Netflix series, the one who has the mom who's like super buff, and she's like on the council. Anyway, that kind of aesthetic is kind of what I was going for, but with armor and weapons, essentially. And she asks the player, "Who are you?" And he says, "Oh, I'm a servant of Bahamut." And she goes, "No, who are you?" Just trying to probe deeper, and he kind of struggles to answer a little bit. And then she says, "You say you serve Bahamut. Many say this, but few truly serve." And just kind of putting the challenge to him. And then a swirl of sand and dust kind of overtakes him in a bright light, and he shoots awake and actually has sand on his person. And so that's just the first introduction to Quana that I decided to give the player, and basically kind of put this thought in his head, like, there's someone watching me. There's someone who serves Bahamut, or maybe this is Bahamut himself manifesting himself with this female figure. Who knows? But I love this character. But this is Quana Kaneko, who has revealed herself because of picking up the book and because the book is on his person. And the idea is that at some point in the not too distant future in the story, there will be a follow-up dream. It may either be at a point where there's a fork in the road and there's a choice of, because Bahamut is god of like justice and goodness and all that sort of thing. And, there's different gray moral decisions that may have to happen over the course of the campaign. And they would be the perfect opportunity for Quana to step in and say, "Okay, what are you going to choose, man? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to prove yourself a servant of like my idea of what Bahamut's justice may be? Or are you going to go and do your own thing?" And those choices will determine how much that book opens up to the character. And I think the character is going to choose something that Quana approves of, just based on how he's been playing this character to this point. But who knows? We will see. Basically, I'm waiting, like, when they get to a point in the story when they do something that is very good, something that is a true statement of justice. Like, we've done something just. We've put our lives on the line to do something just. That is the point at which this book will open to the player and begin to seed and reveal some information. So very interesting. So we got a few things going on right here. We have one player, the druid, is on Nharuun looking for a magical artifact that will help help him take vengeance against the goblin party, the goblin clan or whatever, that destroyed his remote druid village on the very, very western half of the continent. We have, and the party is kind of rallied around that motivation, and so I have a sense that they're probably going to go there next. So I'm going to have an opportunity for them to find an artifact that would help with that endeavor. So it'd probably be a druid-related artifact, and that could be potentially the thing that the Kraken consumed, because maybe the artifact is like, hey, I am not designed to be in a Kraken at the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to drive this guy to madness, and so that I can be found, which is something a powerful magical artifact could potentially do, could have a pseudo consciousness, as it were. Then we have another party member who is very motivated by just finding trinkets and gold and stuff. So that aligns with that very well. And then we have the whole thing with Quana going on. Then we have another one of the players is actively being pursued by a relative who is jealous of him being chosen. This is the warlock. Very jealous of him being chosen by the warlock patron that he has. And is trying to kill him in order to basically try and usurp him within the family and take his power and all of that sort of thing. So a lot of different moving parts here that could go on. We also have Chloe, the level 1 bard, who is now on basically Tortuga. Not really, but in a lot of ways Tortuga. That is a little bit naive and wide-eyed and just ready for adventure and doesn't quite know what she's getting into. We have Captain Electo, who may or may not offer to have the party come to his wedding that's coming up to serve as bodyguards, which could be a whole other interesting adventure situation. And then all the stuff happening in Satis as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things, a lot of threads that could be pulled on. So I'm very excited to see what the players do. But as of now, they are at the maw. It is the brink of multiple fights that they will be undertaking. The first one's gonna be relatively easy. It's probably gonna be a Minotaur, which is a CR3 monster, but just the 6 of them at level 3 versus CR3 monster, they will destroy that thing in like a round or two. One thing that's interesting about the Maw is they have the opportunity to sort of hype up the crowd to try and encourage the crowd to bet on them, and they get a share of the gambling money that's placed on them if they win, which I thought I'm kind of curious just to see what creative things they come up with to try and hype up the crowd and get them to gamble more money, and they get more money out of the winnings if they manage to pull that off and succeed really well. It could be a persuasion roll, it could be a performance roll, it could be a dexterity roll, depending on, or an arcana roll. It just depends on what it is that they try to do to hype up the crowd and get them to say, like, I'm putting my money on this group of random people that we've never seen before, over and against the Minotaur or another crazy beast. The second fight that's more challenging could be a fire elemental that's a CR5 monster, or something like that. It could. I've got a couple. I also thought about doing a spectator, which is sort of like a mini beholder Spectators are kind of cool and interesting, so we'll see. But that is where we're going to pick up next time. They're going to be fighting in the maw, in the literal belly of a dead Kraken that was driven to madness by a magical artifact. And there's paintings of a monolith to follow, there's treasure to seek, and there's other plot lines that I have planned that I have not yet mentioned, but we will pick that up next time. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to me ramble on and on. I hope you find this helpful in some way, and I hope you take some inspiration and incorporate this into your D&D campaign. That is part of the goal of this channel, is just to help you and to improve D&D play all across the world. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, and I'll see you next time.